There's
we're
words.
live, Joe. We're live. Do
Oh,
you like my zombie t-shirt, by the way?
oh, yeah, that's amazing. I've got a dead sheep on, which is sort of Halloweeny.
I
So,
suppose
you know,
a zombie would eat a dead sheep, wouldn't they? A zombie would
I
eat
used
a
to,
dead sheep.
it's never been addressed in zombie literature, has it? Like why they don't just not bother us for ages and just get on with eating like sheep and cows and chickens and
Why do dogs not turn into zombie dogs? This is what I want to know.
they do in Resident Evil. There's always zombie
Do they?
dogs. Yeah, man, all the time. You're
Hmm.
playing that game and a zombie dog will come jumping through a window. The problem with zombie dogs is that they don't just, a normal dog will just pad around a little bit, sniff its
Right.
own ass, get excited by like a tree. Zombie dogs, none of it. Come crashing through windows, full throttle, and go straight for your throat. It's very sad for everyone.
But they sniff their own backside, or they sniff another dog's backside.
Depends how long they are. That's my feeling on it.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah.
You're looking very well today, actually, Stu. I like the new haircut. I like the trimmed beard. You look a bit more
Thanks,
fresh
pal.
faced than last time I saw you.
When did you last see me? What was happening then? They just had, for everyone who's watching, hello. I'm
Hello.
Stuart Turton. That's Miss Moorhead. It doesn't have a first name. It's Miss. Don't bother asking. It's weird. Um, yeah, weird author people who write books. So my favourite authors talking about sniffing backsides. That's a Sunday. That's
That's a good Sunday. That's a good Sunday, I reckon.
you what? Honestly, you're not going to get this kind of shit out of Arunati Roy and Salman Rushdie. They're not going to do it.
Nah, no way, no way.
No.
Is that a cock on your mug? Is it?
Thanks, mate. Yeah. That's in fact a cock on my mug.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this
Okay.
is a bucolic French scene. Yeah.
Oh la la, super duper.
And this is Marissa's. My wife is Marissa Manara. She's half Italian, half Australian. Her mother bought us these cups in an attempt to class us up. I assume. I think that's probably what happened. So none of that sort of like garbage £1 mugs from Tesco from us. No, my friend. We've got these things.
No, no,
We've
no.
shattered about 3 of them already.
Do you if anybody's here, just say hello so that we can see who's in the audience because like you get some weirdos in the audience. Oh, Effie Merrill, she's trouble. She's trouble. And then hopefully, I was watching Danny Marshall, so hopefully Danny Marshall's watching us as well. It's just looks like just the four of us. That'll do. Nice party.
You can always ask questions as well. Feel free. Like,
Oh yeah, ask us questions. Yeah, Stu,
yeah.
I was in Widnes the other day. I was in Widnes. Yep. And I
Yeah.
went back to see a couple of old people because if you don't know our story, our backstory, Stu and I met in Widnes. This is sign language for Widnes, not because it
Yeah.
stinks, but
It
because
does
it was.
stink.
It did. I don't know if it does now, but hi everybody. It does, but that's actually the wide nose of the River Mersey. That's why it's like that because
Mm,
Widnes is Viking for the wide nose of the River Mersey.
yeah. It's good.
Anyway,
Good piece of.
just to go back to our roots, do you want to tell the story about how we came back together, how we became friends in adulthood?
Yeah, I can do. So a bit discombobulated. I should point out here that I've got a 4-month-old baby, so only about 4% of my brain is working at any given time. So let me try and rethink. Basically, I've been following this author called S.E. Moorhead on Twitter for years and years and years, I think, and I'd never paid attention to who that person actually was, apart from a proclivity to shamelessly try and sell her books all the time. Like it was really quite incredible. And then she put up a post. S.E. Moorhead put up this post about going to Toppers in Widnes back in the day, and Toppers was a real shithole of a nightclub in Widnes, and like it was just super dreadful, right? Like sticky floors. Everyone there was 15 or Miss Moorhead apparently. Very strange place. And I was like, oh, this S.E. Moorhead must know Widnes. And then you pick it up because I can't remember what I said, but I said something, then you said something, and then we worked out who each other were.
Well, he basically said, and Stuart's language can be piratical at times. He said, "Are you effing Miss Moorhead?" And I said, "I effing am Miss Moorhead." And then I suddenly remembered who you were, and then we kind of got back in touch. And then during the the sort of the break we had between lockdowns, you very kindly came up to see me, and we went to Marks and Spencer's as old middle-aged people do, and I had a
Mm.
little brew and that, and and caught up. But it was just an amazing thing, really, to think that that it was you, Stu Turton, who is
And
a
now
best-selling bookster.
I would like to point out here as well that Miss Moorhead will always tell this story as though she immediately remembers. She has no idea who I am in school.
That's
She'll
such
claim
a lie.
she's going to claim that on this feed to all of you people that she has no idea which one of those skinny little arseholes I was. She knows I'm one of the skinny little arseholes, so she can roughly work out the year because I'm
No,
old
no,
now.
no, no. Because I remember you clearly standing at the back of the classroom with your arms folded, as if to say, "Go on, then, impress me."
I mean, I probably was doing that. I think there was a lot of kids doing that. We were all like, there was a bunch. My group of friends, um, in school. Widnes is. I don't know if people know Widnes, but like Widnes is an interesting place in that a lot of people stay there, and I've never quite understood what the attraction is. But I knew from the moment I was born, pretty much. I crawled out of the womb and tried to keep on crawling out of Widnes. Like I was going across the floor as fast as I could get. But a lot of other people love it there. They absolutely adore the place and they stayed. And a lot of my friends stayed. And so my friendship group was kind of divided into people who knew that they wanted to get out of Widnes, and everything was about how quickly can we get this childhood over with and these years over with so we can leave. And then a group of people who were just like, no, this is fantastic. Why would we ever want to go anywhere? These are the best years of our life. We're loving it. And I was in that very small group of people who wanted to leave. So yeah, I was sat at the back just being like, why just hurry this along so I can get to the next lesson, so I can go to some exams and get those over and go to university somewhere else. That was really what I was thinking.
But what interests me about you is the fact that you were fairly quiet in school, and then when we were talking about various things, it seemed to trigger something in your brain. And we often talk, you and I, about how strange a thing and how difficult a thing it is to write a novel. And
Mm.
somehow there's two people in the same classroom who both ended up writing novels. And it is alchemy, if you like. You take all your life experiences and all the things you think about and all the things that I taught about or all the things you learned about, and somehow spun it into a book. So, how did that come about for you?
I'll go the same question as you as well, straight back. Like I
Mm.
will say, I've always said this everywhere I go. Like Miss Moorhead's class was the only class I was interested in because you asked questions and like you wanted to hear people's answers. It wasn't a kind of like dictatic. This is a thing. This is the thing you need to know to get to the exam. It really was like, okay, Stu, you don't believe in God and you don't believe in afterlife. What do you think there is? Like it was a sort of like, what would heaven and hell look like theoretically? How would that work? Crime punishment. We did a lot of interesting big topics, and for someone who wasn't much interested in education, being asked a question and heard when I gave a response was incredible to me. Like I adored that. And that was the only class I looked forward to going to was yours, which is why I was so eager to see you afterwards and say thank you and say all
Oh,
the
thanks,
things we,
Stu. Yeah,
we said. It was amazing.
yeah,
But like I don't know, like it's just we talk about it. The writing part of it is separate to the imagination and idea part of it, right? Like so I know loads of people who can write, but they have no imagination whatsoever. I know a lot of people who've got a great imagination who can't write, and I know some people who couldn't structure for toffee. So they've got a great imagination and they can write a lovely email, but they would have no idea how over 90,000 words or 130,000 words to structure a book, how to tell a story over that length. There's loads of skills that go into being an author, right?
I'd agree
So
with
for
that.
m-
I'd agree.
and you don't, and it is the alchemy of having all those skills lined up and being
Yeah,
good. And you can be a 5 out of 10 at one of them, a 10 out of 10, and 9 out of 10
yeah,
at all the different levels. And the ideas is something we have in common. Our books are about ideas, they're about big questions, they're about getting to the heart of something. But then you can't, that's a philosophy book. So you've got to turn it into a piece of entertainment. And that's the
yeah.
skill for me. The ideas have never been a problem. They're just there. They're sat in me. I am interested, as you are, in crime and punishment, in morality, in what we expect of other people, what we expect from society.
Yeah.
But then putting that into a story that people would actually want to read, that's the trick. You do it brilliantly as well. Like you did it, the treatment's fantastic, by the way. Congratulations.
Thanks, Stu. But I often
Okay.
think that writing's a bit like it's like doing a jigsaw puzzle. You've got the overall sort of gestaltic picture that you're trying to go for, and then you've got all the little bits that you've got to fill in as well and put them all together. And I think there is, there's massive sort of skills that you can learn. So I learned how to structure a book. I didn't necessarily know how to do that. Imagination is something I think you've either, as you say, you've either got it or you haven't. And then there's the whole, I think one of the biggest things is not only resilience, but absolute bloody mindedness. I am so bloody minded. And you have to be to write a book that's like 90, 100, 105,000 words. You just got to chip at it and chip at it and chip at it. And I think, you know, as you say, that there's a kind of a graphic equalizer of ability on those things. Some are high, some are low. But I certainly feel very lucky, feel very blessed to be able to kind of write a book because, you know, it's a kind of magic, isn't it? To quote Freddie.
I can't imagine. I didn't think that would be the first Queen reference, but here we are. I think I can't imagine. Just came up with a friend actually the other week. I can't imagine having the idea and not being able to get it out. I can't imagine. I remember there was a quote somebody was talking about this. I think it was Glenn Hoddle was talking about the fact that as a coach, because he was such a brilliant footballer, he didn't understand players who couldn't just do what he did. Like he was trying to coach players who were worse than him, and he didn't couldn't coach them because he could just do it. He'd always been able to do it. He was born with it. It wasn't a problem. Bobby Charlton said the same thing recently. He just was always able to do it. So he didn't. It's not that he didn't appreciate it, but he didn't know what it was. And I feel the same. I've always been able to write. It's never been a problem for me. Like the idea that I can have an idea and see a thing and I just describe it, like I can just put it down in words and I can do that. And I've always been able to do it. And I've got better at it and I've got sharper and I've learned which bits of it are important and which bits are not. Like the I used to be the guy who described a dirt path, right? Like instead of just saying it's a fucking dirt path. Like you don't need to know much more than a dirt path. But I used to describe dirt paths. And I've got better at knowing when it's a dirt path and when you need to know more about it. But the idea that you couldn't do that is horrifying to me. Genuinely, on this Halloween night, that is a thing that would be having that inside me and not being able to just to sort of express it. Oh God, it'd be like having flies crawling around in your skull.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you should say that because often I feel as though there's this like amazing energy in my brain and it causes a lot of bother unless I apply it to something useful. And I do say I think there's a possibility I might be ADHD or neurodiverse because my divergence because unless I focus on something I can get really really over anxious, and thankfully when I'm
Mm.
writing all that energy goes to one place and I just really calm down and I can, feel a lot better. So I do kind of wonder if there's actually something different about our brains that we can do these kind of things. But what do you find difficult about writing, Stu?
Writing, I find writing to be difficult. The actual act of
Same.
sitting down, it's not writing.
Yep.
Like writing's easy. The sort of putting words on a page, no problem. It's when I start to think about what I'm actually doing, and it's like, oh, I'm going to
Yeah.
sit here for the next 8 hours and do this. This is my job. Like, and it's a beautiful sunny day outside, or it's a rainy day outside. I don't care. Like, I generally want to be up and out and doing a thing. Like I've got two daughters, I've got a family. Like I'd rather be almost anywhere else than at this desk doing this job. Like it's such a weird thing to be able to do it so well, but fundamentally not enjoy the task of actually doing it. I sometimes
Was it
describe this
Dorothy
as
Parker? But Dorothy Parker who said, "I hate writing. I love having written."
yeah, exactly. I don't
Yeah.
know the quote, but I
Yeah.
absolutely agree with it. Yeah, like
Yeah.
it's a mind-numbing task, and there's no other way to get it done. In most other professions, it's like building a brick wall, right? Like you build a brick
100%.
wall, and it must be incredibly satisfying, but you're still building a brick wall. And like I think
Yeah.
for people who don't do it, it appears magical, and the amount of people who want to get into this profession and because they're like, oh well, I get to work at home and just be in my imagination all day. And you're like, that's not the job. That's the first 1% of the job. 99% of the job is getting all of that shit from here to there. It's moving
Yeah.
sand. That's all you're doing.
Yeah, and it's tiring. I think it's very tiring. It can be tiring in the brain, but also what I find is that I can do a vomit draft pretty easily and slap it all down, but then it's going back and making it into something good can be quite difficult as well. I've got that part of my brain that just wants to get the whole picture of the jigsaw puzzle done,
Mm.
and then I've got the part of the brain that needs to do the tiny bits, and those two parts battling together can be quite tricky. I just want to draw attention to our books. Have you got a copy of your books there to show pictures of?
No.
Okay, well, I'm going to do it. So I have Witness X, which is my original, my debut, which is actually getting brought back out with my new publisher.
Oh,
And
great. Well,
a fancy schmancy new cover. And then this is the one that looks Stuart Turton on there. So this is the treatment, which is all about crime and punishment, and me reimagining the world. Tell us a little bit about your book, Stu.
My book is, I've written a few now. My first one was called The Seven Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. That was an Agatha Christie book in a Groundhog Day loop, which was kind
Sorry,
of
can we just say
interesting.
again, because say that again, that's beautiful. It's a Agatha.
Christie in a Groundhog Day loop.
Okay.
Oh, thanks. My second one was called The Devil in the Dark Water. That was about Sherlock Holmes and Watson sort of archetypes trapped on a haunted boat. That was really good fun. And then my latest one, should have proof of that somewhere. The Last Murder at the End of the World is. Oh, hang on. Hang on. There's a pile of things down there. Just wait. I'll be back. Honestly, there's a question, Miss, over the side. Do you want to have a look at that question? We'll do it
Yes,
next.
I do. So, was there a defining book for you, something that changed your perspective or made you do something differently? If we talk,
There you go.
there we go. That is such a great
That
cover, Stu.
And pal. Yeah, so that's the new one, Last Murder at the End of the World, and that's about 122 people, the last 122 people on the planet. Everyone else has been killed off, and they're on a little island, living a perfectly idyllic life. And there's no violence on the island. There's never been a crime on the island. They don't even fight. There's no pushing, no shoving, no nothing. And then one of them turns up dead one morning. So they have to inspect the entire idea of murder. They have to confront it for the first time and what it means and why it happened and why anybody would do this horrific thing. And it's because, sorry, before we get onto Alex's question, I'm again your questions and the thing we talked about in school all those years ago. It's always bothered me, and it bothers everybody who's got half a brain, that our society is enraptured by violence and terrified of sex. Bewilders me, bewilders me. And like this idea that we are entertained by, fascinated by, transfixed by murder and death and horror and gore and blood. It's bewildering to me. So I was trying to write a murder mystery where that central conceit is baffling to all the characters as it is to me most days, and that's what this is.
I love
Well, also
that.
been
I love that.
yeah, well, that's good because it nearly killed me writing it. So because it's a really
I
hard
think
thing to do.
this one, I think what baffles me in life, well, not baffles me, but I'm obsessed with psychopaths. I don't enjoy looking at them or watching films about them, but it really gets on my nerves that there's such a small amount of people cause so much trouble
Mm.
and cause so much upset and so much suffering. So I was thinking to myself, maybe it is a matter of just how the brain works. Maybe it's a diversity in its own way, and maybe that was the case, that somebody could cure it. So I started getting obsessed with this idea, and also I'm kind of thinking, in society, people commit crimes because they have a lack, they have needs, so they go and steal food or they squat. Why don't we, in the society and the justice system, on tier one, if people commit crime because they need food or shelter, the government gives it to them. Tier two, if they commit crimes because of PTSD or addiction or emotional psychological problems, they get psychological help. Sort of tier three, they're just doing it then because they're bad and they're naughty, they're making bad choices, so they're going to get punished. And then tier four, kind of tier four, look at psychopathy. So really, again, the way you've written your book from a stance of not understanding obsession with murder and death, I wrote mine from if I had my chance, I would have a world where people did get their needs met, so that they weren't committing crime and they weren't suffering, and people who are psychopaths there would be a cure for it. And a lot of the science that kind of went into this, it essentially could technically work in a way. It's not just smoke and mirrors. A lot of that kind of what I thought about kind of, just possibilities, potential, in the future, if you have the kind of technology. So I think you and I both, in a way, write about the world we'd like to live in and examine the ideas that kind of are upsetting or great on us in a way. Yeah.
But that's, I think, it's an interesting genre because it lets you do that, right? And it's sort of when I read you must get this as well. Like I get thousands of proofs every week now, and people want you to quote on them or to read them and say nice things about them. And I read a lot of crime books where they don't. The crime books don't have any interest in that subterranean. There's nothing underneath the crime. There's just a person died, and then somebody's investigating it, and the person
Yeah,
investigating is uniformly like an alcoholic, or they've got some trauma in their past. And the trauma of the killer, the trauma of the victim is sort of just, oh, it's just a clue. It's just a way of getting to the truth. It's not in of itself an interesting idea to the author. It's just a thing that exists in the world. But the trauma of the hero is like of vital importance. And I find that that's a really weird inversion of what's important, right? Like it's as you say, like if a killer is killing somebody, something is broken, something is fundamentally wrong. And in lots of places, the thing that's fundamentally wrong is in our society. It's around us, it
yep,
exists. It's a
yep,
thing that was done to them. Like, this is not to
yeah,
excuse their behavior because things are done to all of us and we don't kill people. But there's often a time when people are pushed and the way they respond is interesting. So, yeah, those crime
yep,
books uniformly, I just toss away because I can't really deal with that. Like, I want, like your work, I want a book to have more going on. It's fine. Write about murder, write about investigations, have dead bodies. And the puzzle is always brilliant. I love the puzzle. I love the solution to the problem. But if that's all that's on the page, I'll be very disappointed. It'll feel like very hollow. I like books that use this as a prism to get to something else and to inspect something else. That's why I'm really enjoying your books. So we got loads of questions. You did that. Did you
well,
do
I read
Hawley's?
Effie's out. Effie was saying, was there a defining book for you, something that changed your perspective or made you do something differently? I mean, I don't know about a fiction book, but certainly when I started writing, I hadn't had any formal training in it. I'm sure you haven't, Stu, either. But I had to
No.
I read around a lot. I couldn't afford to do master's degree in it, or I wouldn't have had the time to go and study. So I just read a lot of books when I was in bed, like sort of Into the Woods by John Yorke, or Save the Cat by Jessica Brodie, or The Science of Storytelling by Will Storr. So there's an awful lot of books that I did read. Actually have to put them on my website so that people can kind of see them if they want to. Um, but was it defining? What about you? A defining book for you? I mean, for you, it's mainly Agatha Christie. I mean, she really, you read her when you were very young, didn't you?
Yeah, I think it's Agatha Christie because I love the puzzles. It's funny because Agatha Christie didn't interrogate what was going on underneath. Like, she didn't have time. She only wrote like, a book's worth 40,000, 50,000 words. She didn't really have time to get thematic or subtextual. She basically, it was about a puzzle. It was about a murder, but like cozy crime, right? It's all like a person died, a person investigates. The solution to the puzzle is nearly always so ingenious and so clever and so fun
Yeah,
that you don't really care what the subject is. So yeah, it's funny. I think my writing is almost like it's a it's a big warm hug of that and a rejection of that simultaneously. Like I want to do both those things. Like I love her puzzles, but don't particularly like what she does with the genre. But actually, I think Agatha Christie, and then the book that blew my mind. I guess you're the same. Like I just read. I always read. I was a voracious. I
you
love
did.
reading,
Yeah.
and
Mm.
and but it wasn't until I read The God of Small Things by Arunati Roy, which
Really,
is the greatest book on the planet. It's
really.
just for
Okay.
me, it's beautiful and moving and wonderful, and it means different things to me at different times of my life. So that story keeps evolving as I read it and as I go back to it and as I get older. But it really unlocked the idea that writing wasn't this one thing, that writing could be done in all these other different ways. And I moved on from Arunati Roy to Salman Rushdie. I moved on from that to Barbara King Solver, like all these authors who play with form and play with structure. That's where I got really invested. That's where I was like, I'd actually quite like to do that. Like not just writing Agatha Christie. I want to do that bit where you move paragraphs around. Things don't have to be a linear
Yeah.
story, or like you can tell stories in different forms. That's what really got me. That's the bit that made me excited about doing this job.
I think for me, I mean, the books I love aren't particularly the books that I would write. So I love Perfume by Patrick Suskind and
Mm,
The Book of Human Skin by Michelle Lovrich, Handmaid's Tale, Clockwork Orange. I love an awful lot of kind of scientific books as well, like To Be a
Mm.
Machine by Mark O'Connell and Susan Greenfield's Tomorrow People, so I'm kind of interested in science, I'm interested in religion, I'm interested in stories, but I think a
They're
lot
all
of, go on,
no. I was just going to say, Miss, that those books are all
miss, shut up, miss.
great, great bits of world building, which is what you do. Like, it's interesting. That's the thing that you've taken from those. You say you don't really
That
write those,
is
but you
so
do. They
interesting.
they're all like not overly long books that build worlds very quickly and very
Right,
convincingly. And the worlds do have a similarity to your worlds. Like they do,
right, okay.
they feel lived in. They feel like they've got edges. They feel like they're not too distant from this one, but just distant enough. There is a pattern there, I think. Sorry, I interrupted. It's very rude.
That's so nice to be analysed because I was kind of wondering about that myself, like kind of what, rings a bell. But I'm also interested in I'm very interested in morality and ethics and technology, this kind of AI now and sort of genetic testing and creating life. They've created an embryo without using just with using stem cells. All these kind of things are they just really interest me about who we are and
Mm,
where we're going and what we're supposed to be doing. So, there's a massive playground for me in the sense of all those ideas. If I want to write about it, there's quite a lot of things there that are quite good fun to write about. But I also kind of agree with you. I mean, a lot of crime books for me personally, they're about, as you say, a crime, a person gets killed or whatever, and that's all well and good, and people love that. That's what sells,
mm,
and that's absolutely fine. But for me, I just want something that really reflects and looks at and analyzes or evaluates where we are as people, where we are as a race. I mean, a species. How we're getting on,
mm.
and
Yeah.
I try to be a bit positive in the treatment and talk about the positive things about, looking after the planet a bit more and trying to structure things for the needy and that. And I suppose in a way, once a teacher, always a teacher, because I've just taken my uh, preaching from the classroom into a wider audience, hopefully by just
Mm.
flagging things up. Again, not trying to be too didactic, but flagging ideas up and trying to get people to think about them. And I think it's a valid choice, really, to try and to do that. I hope, anyway.
I just saw, was looking at Alex's question earlier, where he was talking about you and me switching genres, and how we'd go about it. And I think this sort of like what we've been talking about naturally leads onto that a little bit, just because you, I know a few authors now who are sort of like being told what to write is sort of wrong, but it's not far off. Like they're basically like, here's a genre, you should go and write in that genre, and roughly this is what it should be about. And that's how they're getting published. And that happens, that goes on in publishing. It's very hard to do. It's very hard to do because the thing that you're doing is not your authentic voice. And
Yeah.
things that you do that are not in an authentic voice in any walk of life will uniformly not be very good or not be as good as they could be. You can be, I think these authors are pulling it off because they're very good authors. Like they've got a skill to do. It's almost like ghostwriting, right? Like it's a different muscle that you're
Yeah,
exercising.
yeah, yeah.
So I wouldn't be able to do Miss Moorhead's books. I couldn't. I just that's not my authentic voice. It's not the way I see the world. She's taking her viewpoint on the world, her interests, and she's putting them on the page in an incredibly entertaining way. But that's not my viewpoint on the world. It's not the bits of it that I'm. Though we do share like morality and crime and punishment, especially. We've both got that in common. But yeah, I wouldn't. I just wouldn't be able to do it. And what would happen is that you would read it and wish that you were reading Miss Moorhead's book. It's just because
Miss
it would feel
Moorhead.
like they would feel like an imitation of it. You are Miss Moorhead. I don't know what this like. They put a Sarah down there. I don't know what that's about. It must be a misspelling. Someone can't spell miss is probably the
Yeah.
problem there. We'll sort that out in
I,
post.
I don't know. I think sometimes, like, yeah, I think a book is it's like the cake made from the recipe of your life, where you come
Mm,
from and what you're about. And as you say, what you're interested in. I think in a funny way, the books I write are the only books I could write. And I think, I'm the only person who could write them in a way, if that makes sense. I think they really belong to me and they're really from the soul. Do you know what I mean? I think the same with you, that you're very honest and straightforward with what you want to do. And I think we could do it if we had to. If your life depended on it, of course, we could write a different genre. But I don't think I'd be. I think the thing about crime thrillers and speculative fiction for me is that it really is a commentary on the world and a commentary on human beings, and that is fundamentally what I'm interested in is human beings.
Yeah, you got right. There was another. Let's hang on. Questions. There's so many good questions.
Oh, was I
That
strict? I don't think so.
No, Miss
Oh,
Modded wasn't. She didn't need to be because, like,
they were
no,
scared of
I
me because I
don't.
was a scouser and used the woolly backs.
No, that was. It was not that. It was because you were young, weren't you? You were like 22 or something. You were young, man.
Well, no, you. Well, I'm 10. I think I'm 10 years older than you, so I would. You would have been about six. No, is that right? Yeah, I would have been about 26, about 25,
26.
26.
It was just like because Miss Modded was like we could talk to her and she wanted us to talk, like, and it was one of those classrooms where you walked into that classroom and you could breathe in it, like it was about interaction. It wasn't about you being noisy. Was the point of the exercise? As long as you were being noisy in the way that she wanted you to be noisy, she was happy. And there was never any. Everyone got their turn. Everyone got a chance to talk. She noticed who was talking, who wasn't talking. So, like, if somebody was being quiet, she would go and ask their opinion and get an opinion out of them. So it was like it was just like it was a good classroom, man. It was an interesting classroom, and we had some smart kids, we had some stupid kids, and Miss Mordy was good at knowing how to make them talk and sort of like what they could do, what they were capable, where their thought would take them, and so there was always a conversation. It felt like a conversation amongst ourselves. It felt like she was leading us, but we always felt like we were interacting with each other. So everyone was mostly too entertained, truthfully. So no, she didn't need to be strict. I don't think I ever saw you shout. Oh, the guy you worked with, what was his name? Like little,
Oh, really? The little one.
what was, yeah, little guy. What
Yeah,
was his name?
Paul Riley,
Well,
my head of department.
Paul, Mr. Riley, yeah, as well. He was a nice man, and he was a
Lovely
bit
man.
strict there, but he didn't quite have that same. He could connect with certain
Charisma.
students. Yeah, he could connect with certain students. He couldn't connect with other students, and if he couldn't connect, then he didn't really know what to do with you too much. But
Although
yeah,
to
I
be
think it's that.
fair, I did have a lower set year 11 who basically used to just throw aeroplanes around the classroom and just, I'd come out of there crying a few times. So, good days, bad
No.
days, really, Stu. Good days, bad days.
Wow, we had a good year. Who else did we? Well, we didn't have a good year, but like our class was particularly good. Blah blah blah. Hello, Sir and Stu. Love watching you two chat. Oh, that's very nice, Sam. Thanks. Da, da, da. Teachers never forget a student. That's wrong. She did completely forget me. I know she did.
I so
Uh,
didn't. That you thinking you're not important. Of course, I didn't forget you.
Forgot me. Good teacher, yes. Excellent teacher. Strict, no. Blah blah blah. Defining book, we did that one. Who are your fave authors? I would read anything Sarah wrote. She's going to get a restraining order. Fucking hell. All right, restraining order. Bloody hell. Um, right, just quickly photograph this in case something happens. Who's your favourite author, Miss?
I don't know. My favorite book is a book called The Meaning of Life, which is sort of like a dictionary of um names on maps that are lying around doing nothing, and they're matched up with everyday human experiences that don't have a word for it. Like sort of an Abilene, which is a place in Scotland, I think, is the word for the pleasing coolness on the reverse side of the pillow.
Oh, that's
Or
good.
a throcking is when you have a toaster, you keep on pushing it down, but you haven't plugged it in, so it won't stick.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah,
throcking. Things like that. I like that. As I say, I, I couldn't pin down one particular author, but I know books that make me really happy. And there's
yeah, yeah.
I'm reading a book at the moment by Victoria Dowd. She writes books about the smart women's guide to murder, and she's absolutely hilarious. You'd love her. She's into Agatha Christie big time. She knows a hell of a lot
Mm.
about Agatha, and she writes cozy crime. So I'm loving that. Loving Fiona Cummings at the moment. She's
Yeah,
quite
yeah.
dark and really intelligent and really, you know, um, just beautiful books. Absolutely love them. What about you? What are you reading? Just reading things people send to you?
I'm currently reading a proof of the Cautious Traveller's Guide to the Wasteland. Have you been sent that?
Right? No.
It's really good. It's a really interesting conceit. So basically it is it's about a couple of passengers who get on this train, the Trans-Siberian Express, leaving Beijing, going up to Russia, going up to Moscow. But as the journey goes on, and because I didn't read the blurb for it, you begin to realize there's weirdness. So they cross, instead of like basically crossing Siberia and a bit of Mongolia, there's now a wasteland there with like strange fauna and flora, and there's dangers. And the train is basically an armored train, which they're not allowed to get off at any point. And if they stare out of the windows for too long, something starts clouding their mind, and they sort of like begin to get lost in the wasteland. So something's going on in this wasteland, and something's going on with all these passengers who've all got secrets. And it's really beautifully written. It's really evocative. It's glacial, like it's not moving at any great pace, but the pace it's moving at is wonderful in its own right. So I'm reading that currently.
Is
I'm
that
really
is
enjoying
that
that.
speculative fiction, Stu? Because there's a bit of confusion about what a speculative fiction is. Do you? Because I consider myself to be a speculative crime thriller writer, because speculative as in the sense of, what if we could cure
Mm,
psychopathy, or what if we could read people's minds, um, and then on top of that there'll be a crime. And I also like to sort of, make it really exciting, because that's the sort of book I would like to read, something that was exciting. So I see myself like that. I mean, I think speculative crime is an umbrella term for, like, I suppose sci-fi, and I suppose maybe
mm.
supernatural stuff as well. I mean, how would you describe your own genre?
Oh, I don't know. Like I don't. It's one of those things. I don't mean to be flippant about it. Like when I started writing, I wrote Seven Deaths because that was the story that was in my head, and
Yeah.
I wrote it just as a murder mystery. I didn't really think about. I knew it had Groundhog Day. I knew it had body swapping in it, but I didn't. It was a murder mystery to me. It was never anything other. And then when it came out, it was marketed as this high concept crime, and I was like,
Mm.
"What the fuck is that? Like, what's high concept crime?" And no one could give me a very good explanation of it, apart from it's just a marketing term. It's just like
Yeah. Yeah.
they put it in a box and then they can sell it to this person, or you put it in that box and you can sell it to that person. But then I read the second book, and the second book is suddenly like a supernatural, horror murder mystery. So I'm in a different box then. So like I just always think I'm writing murder mysteries. Like for me, it's a classic genre. It's what I'm writing in. There's always a body, there's always a detective, and I think if you've got those two poles, that's probably what you're writing. And
Yeah.
then I've got leeway to sort of go where I want in that. But I think if you get too hung up on the rest of it, it can sort of cloud where your story's going or what you're doing
Yeah.
or the
I mean,
freedom
because
that
you're
you
you're
feel you
not
have in your
writing at the
writer.
moment, because you've finished your book, haven't you? So have you got an
Mm.
idea for the next one?
Yeah, yeah, no, I'm writing the next one. I'm writing the next one. I'm writing two TV shows and I'm writing short stories. So I've got like, yeah, it never stops, pal. Like it just,
No,
there
I
is
agree.
never any
Yeah.
break.
Yeah.
Like there's always
Yeah.
something. And that's the way it should be, right? Like that's a job. Like you go to a job every day apart from a few holidays. So writing, I feel writing should be the same. Like you should, if you've got 3 weeks a year, you should take 3 weeks a year, but otherwise I should be writing something. Because
Yeah.
and I used to be a freelance journalist. So the idea that you write for money is baked into me. Like
Yeah.
you write because it pays the bills. Like for me, this isn't. We've talked about this in the past, haven't we? Sort of off
Mm.
camera, but I don't consider this as a sort of magical career. I don't get the bit of it where it's like this vocational thing, though I do believe it is vocational because there is a
Right.
skill inside you and a draw towards it. But it's words for money. Like it's a job. Like it's got to, for me, it has to pay the bills. And if it doesn't
Although,
do
to be
that, then
fair,
I should be the
Stu, at the moment, the paper boy in our street gets paid more than me. So I think there's a kind of,
that, that's the
you've
way
hit the
it's
big time, but
no, that's the way it
I'm
starts,
struggling
pal.
still.
Like it's got to be that thing, doesn't it? Like you build this job, like you build this career, like you've got to, like you always start somewhere and then you build up and you build up and build up with every book. And that's how you build your audience. That's the way it is for most people. But yeah, I
Yeah.
think that idea that it's some like you're supposed to carry on struggling just because you have got this magical job that everybody wants. I don't like that. That's like a pervasive thing that runs through this industry that it's like you're not supposed to talk about money. You're not supposed to talk about
Yeah.
struggling or doing well.
Yeah.
You're just supposed to be
Yeah.
grateful that you get to write books that people
I'd
read, and
agree. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
bollocks. Like, have you seen
Yeah.
anybody who's seen like Britney Spears' advertising campaign? Her marketing budget is basically taken away like the marketing budget for about 50 debut authors for
Yeah.
Britney Spears. Has anybody not heard of Britney Spears? Does anybody not know that who Britney Spears is or that she's got a book out? What's the fucking point of any of that?
I
Outrages
know.
me. It outrages me.
I know. And then, you are talking about, like, a number of people could have a living wage. A number of all authors
Mm.
could have a living wage. like 10 or maybe even 20 for that kind of stuff. The industry is strange. It's arcane and it's strange, and it's kind of the wheels are a bit dodgy. But anyway, that's a bit depressing. We don't want to talk about that. We want to talk about happy things. So, Ed, can you tell us anything about your new book?
Me? Nah, I told you everything I can tell you about. Oh, the one I'm writing currently, the next one that'll be after
Yeah,
this one. Nah,
yeah.
nah,
All I can say
nah.
about the one I'm writing at the moment is it's a mashup between The Wizard of Oz and Frankenstein. That's where I'm kind of at the moment. I'm about
Oh, that's
20,000 words
amazing.
in. Yeah.
Are you,
If it works out, yeah,
how,
it'd be cool.
how you feeling about it? Are you currently in the sort of like, I'm not sure whether this is working, or you were like, this is. Because are you in that thing where you have one day where you're like, I'm the best horse on the planet, the next day you're like, I'm a sack of shit. What am I doing?
Sort of, yeah. But do you know that feeling where like you're trying to reach for a balloon and the balloon's just kind of out of your grasp and you're reaching it? I
Hmm.
finally got my fingers on it. It's not quite settled, but I finally feel as though I've kind of got something. So it's taken me 3 months to nail down the idea and get where I'm
Hmm.
getting. But you just keep plodding on. It's like you say, it's building a brick wall. It's word on word on word, isn't it? And just
Yeah.
eventually you've got something to work with.
That's the insane metaphor, though, isn't it? It's like each book is a brick wall. Each bit of the brick wall is the house, and the house is your career.
Yeah,
Like you just keep doing it until like
yeah,
you've got a nice house to live in, basically. And that's,
yeah,
um, but yeah, that part of it is interesting, right? Where you're sort of in this stage where you're like, this could work, or it
yeah.
might not, and I'm not going to know for another year. How long does it take you to write books?
I would say 18 months. I'd say vomit
Mm.
draft, you're looking at 9 months, 10 months, but to get it knocked into shape, you're looking at 18 months. So I'm meant to have one out next August, but that's not going to happen. Just haven't told me my editor yet. I'll get round to it. I'll tell
They
him.
expect that. They totally expect that, don't they? They're just like they give you some like impossible, and if you hit it, they're like, "Oh, this is amazing." But like, I don't think
Yeah,
they
but
ever
at the end
anticipate
at
it.
the end of the day, we've got families, as well. My dad's getting old; he needs looking after. Teaching. I'm only teaching 3 days a week, but that's
Hmm.
by a lot of standards of work, that's kind of a full-time job if you think about all the other things. So kind of, I've got my hands full, but when you want it so bad, I get up at 5 in the morning and do an hour and a half before I go to school, or I'll do some on my days. I'll work hard on my days off, and you just got to keep plodding. But it's like, I remember sort of the year after I taught you, sitting in the staff room saying to myself, this job's so hard. This isn't really what I want to
Hmm.
do. And it's taken me that 27 years to sort of like kind of get to where I am now. I mean, I've been published for 6 years, but the first kind of 4 years weren't really working out. But I think
Hmm.
now I think I could be getting somewhere now. I've got a good publisher. I've got
Yeah,
ideas. I've got
do.
a book out. Could be getting somewhere now. Fingers crossed.
It's that thing people don't talk about, right? In publishing, that you can have the false start. Like it doesn't.
Oh yeah,
When you sort of go into it, right? You make the mistake of thinking, "I've got an agent, so I'm published." You don't know that there's a state get the agent, then the agent has to get you published so that you can still
yeah,
falter there, and then you get published. And you're like, "Well, I'm made now. I'm sorted. Off I go." And that doesn't have to happen either. Like the publisher can
no,
do all sorts of things with your book, as you've discovered. Like, and they may
yeah,
not be in the contract. You may get a different editor. You may get a different. All sorts of things can happen. But you
yeah,
are like you've definitely on the right path now. Like you've just got to have people who believe in your work and
yeah,
love your work. And once you've got those people in your corner, you should be away.
yeah. Hope so. Hope so. Yeah.
We got any
So,
more
any more
questions in
questions,
there?
people?
Yeah.
Have you
Seems
got any
changing the
book
script.
events coming up? You should soon, shouldn't you? Your new book.
Yeah, Bloomsbury are sorting it all out now, so they're gonna do it'll be a tour, like a UK toury thing. So I'll be going around all the houses, but I leave all that stuff to them so they can work it all out and they'll come back and tell me where I need to go for like a month probably.
Yeah.
Um,
Hopefully,
but
Liverpool Waterstones. Hopefully, I'll be able to interview you then. That'll be good.
yeah, no, I'll definitely be up at Liverpool because like it's a stomping ground and I've got to come up north. I think do you it's interesting this stuff. Like I simultaneously love doing it and dreading doing it because like I love meeting people. I love the part of the job that takes me out of the office away from the keyboard is amazing and like chatting's amazing and I love the on stage and the energy that you can create and the sort of feedback you can get. I love all that sort of stuff because
Yeah.
being on stage for a book event is a bit like a piece of stand up right after a while. Like you're going to get asked roughly the same sorts of questions, and you have these answers that work, that are good answers, and get a good response from people, and you get to be yourself. But on the other hand, as I get older and my kids get older, it is harder to take that time away and to sort of like disappear. Like I'm gonna have to go. I'll go to the US in February for a couple of weeks to do a tour there, and like lucky bastard gets to go to the US for a couple of weeks, but it's far away from my family, man. Like it is like,
Yeah.
and they're back in. It's like, yeah, it's going away to do a piece of work and stuff. And those US tours are intense. It's like a different, they put you on a plane. They put you on a plane in the morning, you're in a city in the afternoon, you do your event in the evening, then you get on another plane in the morning, go to a different city, do a different event. And you do that for 2-3 weeks, however long they want you for. And
To be fair, I could live with it, Stu. I could live with it.
mate, it's horrible. I shit you not. I was the same. I went there and was like, oh fuck, like this will be amazing. And after about four of them, also the thing they do in
Knackered.
the US is you're knackered, and they tend to just put you at the front of the bookstore on your own. So in front of a crowd who've never read your book, and you're supposed to convince them to read your book. So it's not like in the UK where you'll sit down with somebody friendly and you'll have a chat, and most people very frequently the people in the crowd will go to that event every week, regardless of who's there, and it's sort of up to you to convince them to buy your book at the end of the night. It's a very different sort of process.
Okay.
So imagine doing that every night in a different city for like 3 weeks.
Exhausting.
It's absolutely
Well,
exhausting.
Effie's asking us here, what's the highlight in your writing career? I mean, honestly, one of them for me is having reconnected with you and telling me how much my teaching influenced your book. That made me feel vicariously as though, I was part of the seven deaths, and it was really, really special
Mm.
for me, really special. Other highlights, I don't know, it's ups and downs like a roller coaster, get an agent, you're buzzing, you lose an agent, you're depressed, you get a publisher, it's great, you don't get anywhere, you get a new publisher. It's just a roller coaster, really. I think part of my this, you see that gold line there, see the gold
Mm.
foil, that bit there. That was a highlight because they must love me. They're giving me a bit of gold stuff. Do you reckon? Next, I'll get
Yeah,
Spreaders, me. Yeah.
a bit
So, what's your highlights, Stu?
spreaders. Don't
Spreaders.
know. I do have a problem with this. That like not to get I'm the depressing one in this conversation, aren't I? It's because
Yeah.
like I do have a thing in my life, and I've always had it for everything, that like it doesn't matter what happens, whether it's successful or not successful. My thing is what's next. Like okay, that happened. What's next? Like I didn't celebrate any of it. I didn't celebrate getting an agent. I didn't celebrate getting a publisher. I didn't celebrate selling a book. Like I just
Stuart, I'm going to be Miss Moorhead now. Plato says a life unreflected is a life not worth living. You need to take time out and reflect. A bit of
no, I know
gratitude to the universe, gratitude for
we
giving
have.
you this amazing brain. You are like the smartest kid I ever taught, even though obviously you're not a kid
Hmm.
now. You are the smartest kid I ever taught. And there should be a little bit of kind of just
Gratitude to
reflecting on
it.
where you
We disagree on this massively. I don't. There's no universe. There is a universe. The universe isn't sat there watching me paying attention. The universe couldn't give a shit. The universe is sparkly atoms floating around. There's nothing there to be grateful for. The thing is, like the what's next thing is purely about. I genuinely believe this. It's about like I just come from a working class family. All I ever saw was my parents work hard. Like they worked hard. They did a thing. They worked hard. Like they came in and out. They worked separate shifts. They were barely in the same room together when I was growing up because they just had to earn. Like,
are.
one of them had to be looking after us, and the other one had to go to work. So
Yeah.
for me, it's not about an unreflected life. I understand that I'm lucky. I understand that I'm a privileged person to have the things that I have by doing something that I'm naturally gifted at. Like I've put work into it, but I'm very lucky to have this talent innate within me and to, have success through that. But equally, the idea of there's to me personally, there's absolutely no value in popping champagne when the thing has already passed. The thing happened, it was done. Now you've got to go and do another thing. It's what we were talking about before. It's just work days. It's just like that was great, that went well. Now I've got to do it again tomorrow. Like if I don't do
Okay,
this
so
again tomorrow, I'm boned.
here's a question you don't have to answer because it's quite
Hmm,
existential. What makes you happy?
I'm always happy. Like I'm just
And that'll do.
innately,
That'll do.
yeah, it's fine. I'm just innately, I've got nothing to be unhappy about. I'm very, very, very lucky. I've got a beautiful wife, got two beautiful children. We can pay our bills, we can buy our food. I enjoy the work I'm doing. It's an innate general happiness. I have the same things
I'm
everybody
like,
else does.
I'd have to say the same. I think generally by my nature, I'm content. Generally,
Mm,
I'm a contented person as it is, but I would like to. I think what we're saying before, you need to get your stories out. And I think that as a teacher outside the classroom, I need to get something out. I need to make a statement about something. Not that I think people want to listen to me and me banging on about crap, but via a
mm,
story, just to be able to raise awareness. I think that's really important to me to find meaning, to find meaning
mm.
in life. And I think writing books actually helps me to do that. It gives me some sort of outlet where I can explore meaning in life.
That's really nice. Like I like the idea that we can use this to get to something else, right? And we can use this sort of think about something and to sort of like
Yeah,
because you don't always have a willing mate in the pub, right? Who's just like, oh yeah, Stu, I'm ready to talk philosophy with you for the next 2 hours. Like, no, no, let's put aside Liverpool's fortunes and talk about this now. That never happens. So like, at least if you're an author, you can talk to yourself. Like you could just write it
yeah,
down and basically bounce. But it's funny what you were saying earlier about I when I'm writing, I self-edit all the time. You talked about vomit drafts, right? I'm always trying to think about the thing that I'm trying to send, that's trying to think the thing that I'm trying to work through. So I'm always self-editing as I go through. So I never get very far, like because I will go back and re-edit the
yeah,
last sort of 15
yeah,
pages the day after. So I'm running to stand still all the time. And it's because of
yeah.
that, because I know what I'm trying to say and I'm constantly aware of whether I'm saying it or not. And it's like, oh, that's not saying it. Get rid of it and start
And that
again.
makes me very frustrated because I feel as though I'm really, really short on time. There's something in me that's like, I've got no time, I've got no time. Not only
Mm.
just in the sense of I've got to be at school later, I've got to make the kids tea, and I've got to do this, but in the sense of like the whole of my life, there's just not enough time to explore and to
No.
talk about and to examine. And, there just seems to be not enough time. And so when I'm writing, I get really frustrated. If I had a superpower, it would be that I could write a book really quickly.
Yeah, but even that is like the who said somebody saw Mark Billingham, I think, said this. Like he was like, if you're an author, everyone everyone who's not an author gets this relationship wrong. If you're an author, ideas are not the problem, time is the problem. Like
Oh,
time will
no,
always be the problem. You will never have enough time to get all the
no.
ideas out. So it's a constant sifting. And sometimes it's emerging, right? You'll be like, oh, actually that idea and that idea sit quite well together. They go together. But it's so often when I start a new book, I'm like, it takes me 3 years to write a book. So like
Yeah.
it'll be like for people when I stop doing this, it will people will be like, oh, he's only got like 4 or 5 books, but that was like 15 years of my life. Like it's taken me
Yeah,
ages. Like it's almost like a time
yeah,
dilation thing for people. It's like, oh,
yeah,
4 books. That's not very much, but like for me, such an epic amount of time, like the longest amount of time I've spent doing any job ever. Like normally I move
yeah,
on after 3 years in a job. So like this is it's a big thing for me. Like it's a big, big
yeah,
thing.
yeah,
Mm. Any
yeah.
more questions? Questions, questions, questions?
Alex is saying, if we could tour anywhere, where would it be?
Oh, I think we're
I'd
getting.
like to,
Oh, it,
I'd like to go to the States. I would like to go around the States. I'd like to take my family with me around the States touring, or go
hmm.
to sort of Australia, New Zealand, just because that's somewhere I really wouldn't have a chance to go to, I don't think.
Yeah, they're toured anywhere would it be? I've been really lucky because I've toured on most places. I used to be a travel journalist in a former life, so I've been to most places I ever wanted to go as well. Again, it's a remarkably lucky person. I think because I always sort of knew what I.
Stuart, you are remarkably blessed. I just wish you understood how, like, the universe, God, call it what you want, is giving you these wonderful things. That's what I think.
I
Just bringing a bit of
ta
RE for you there.
talent and perseverance. Is how I would express it. But like, I think I would love to go. I've got the same as you. I'd love to take my family now because I've always done these things without them. So like now we're going to the US in summer. So I'm doing 2 tours. So I'm doing one in February. That'll just be me. But then we're going back in July, I think. So I'll take those guys with me, and they'll come around with me. Best moment though was when I was Seven Deaths had just come out in Italy, and I went up. I took my wife and my daughter, and I was doing an event in Bologna, and I was up on stage, and I just saw my daughter. She was only like 2.5, toddling.
Oh,
And I just saw her toddling down the aisle between the two sets of chairs, just
oh,
toddling down. She didn't get, she just see daddy on the stage. She just walked all the way. And my wife was just like, I don't know what to do. And she just came up and she climbed up on the stairs, and I got her and I sat her on my lap.
oh,
And she sat there for the rest of the event, and she was good as gold and answered all the questions, and all the Italians loved her. Like, she's such a cute kid. And at the end of it, all the Italians, they applauded very politely because the event was over. And my daughter just thought it was all for her, so she just like waved and gave them little bows and stuff at the end of
love
it. She
it,
was
love
absolutely
it.
convinced. So
Whereas
I
my
basically
big boy, he can't read my book because he says, "Mum, whenever I read your books, all I can hear is your voice, so I can't read them." It drives me mad. So it goes from the sublime to the ridiculous. So anyway, listen, we've got 2 minutes. So basically, we're going to just to thank everybody so much for turning up. There's so many familiar names in the audience today. Loads of amazing writers and lovely, lovely people. Stu, absolute. I just love you and adore you to pieces. You're super, super brainy. I'm so glad that God and the universe have blessed you so much with your brains and your resilience and your words that you can come back to me as a grown person and I can see the fruits of our labour. So I'm just really happy that to be able to speak with you today. I'd love to get a chance to do it on stage sometime, somewhere, you and me. Have they not asked you to Harrogate yet?
what, this year? No, I've got
Any
nothing to promote,
time?
have I? No, I've been to Harrogate like
Oh,
5 times. Sorry, yeah, I've done it a lot. So like, but I've just got nothing to promote currently. So I'll probably end up. I may go back next year. We'll see.
yeah, might see
Yeah,
you
yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Right,
yeah.
so thanks everybody for coming. Thank you, Stuart.
Thank
You
you,
can say
everyone. Miss,
Sarah now. Say
I
Sarah.
will
Thank
not.
you, Sarah.
I don't know who this Serta person is, and I don't know why you keep referencing it. It's so weird. You may be neurodivergent. You may be correct because you convinced you're someone called Serta when you're actually called Miss Moorhead. But just a final word, just to say thank you so much for teaching me and inspiring me and being pretty great. It's really nice to sort of like come back together in adult life and talk about this thing that we both love. It's really, really lovely.
Really is. Really
Yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah. All right. Thank you, everyone. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone. See you later. Bye.
Bye.